Welcome.
Welcome back.
Long time no see. So,
This is our June Explore the Unseen newsletter, right?
2024.
Yep.
So 6 long years ago, I want to just do this. I didn't talk about this, but I'm going to go back a little bit. 6 long years ago, we started with this idea of exploring, and it has carried through for 6 years. We've been able to explore the country, but ultimately what we wanted was to explore God and to explore what it meant to follow Him. And we had both heard God telling us that there's more, and we didn't know what that meant, and we still don't know what that means. We know a little bit, but
God has shown us glimpses.
just little glimpses of Him over and over. And so we just want to encourage you that through your journey of what God's doing in your life, to explore the unseen things, the things that you cannot see on this earth, to press into those. So,
And to be obedient when you don't really fully understand what exactly all the details are. But you just want to follow where God leads.
yeah. And even when you don't feel like it, because sometimes we don't feel like it, but I made a choice to do it a long time ago. So,
You're finding us indoors.
yes, because it is Texas in the summer, and it is toasty. And so we are, the blessing of air conditioning is incredible. Last year we spent our summer here in the state of Texas as well, with one air conditioning unit in the RV and a little portable unit that just couldn't cut the mustard. And so this year we have been so fortunate to have a second AC unit that we have installed right up there on top. Getting it up there was a challenge. Noah thought that he was going to catch it falling off the roof more than one time. I thought he was going to catch me falling off the roof, but ultimately God was very kind. We got the air conditioning unit on top, got it installed, and it has made
A world of
immense difference in the temperature inside the RV.
You know, instead of us going to bed in 89, 90 degrees inside, it's actually a comfortable temperature most days. Now we're still having some glitches with it. We think we might be tripping a breaker over and over, so we're gonna still work on that. But if you want to see the video of hoisting it on the roof, we have that in our Telegram channel, and I'll link it in the email, and then also I'll have some photos of that in our email newsletter as well.
Don't miss it. Yeah. So that is an amazing blessing that the Lord's given us. And then you may have heard about this eclipse that came through recently. We were just one of those people that happened to be in the path of totality. Very interestingly, my family is spread out all over the country, and all of us were in the path of totality. It was pretty remarkable. All the way from South Texas all the way up into Virginia. But we talk about just a huge buildup that ended up being a letdown. We just unfortunately had a huge cloud cover the day of the eclipse, and so we weren't able to see very much of it at all. But
I'm gonna fix this so we're not.
It's
crooked.
not quite so wonky.
We're crooked.
Oh, there, that's fixed. Whoa. Okay, here, let me just try to hold it a little better.
Okay.
So we ended up not being able to see much of anything, but had some really cool pictures. I know that a lot of you guys have seen it, if not all of you have seen some pretty amazing pictures. And just a reminder of how cool it is that the way the earth and the moon and the sun are separated, that there's almost a perfect covering as you go from one to another, and as you get an eclipse, that it's perfectly covered. It's really kind of remarkable to think about. So,
but Jim's parents were also in the path of totality, and their neighbors sent us some amazing photos that I share also in our email newsletter. So you'll see that photo in there as well. So if we had been able to drive, if we had chosen to drive 2 hours, we would have been able to see the total amazingness, but we did not.
Didn't get it.
But I will tell you this, as we, April, May, and June, we definitely were in the spring season, and as we've moved into summer, and we have seen so much fruit happening from seeds that we have been planting. And We know we've mentioned to you guys before praying for a family, friends of ours that we have hung out with over various parts of the country, and they're a full-time traveling family as well, and such a beautiful family of 4 with 2 boys. And we got to spend time with them in April again when they came and hung out in their RV across from us, and we spent about 4 days together. Again, every time we are around them, we are intentional about planting seeds in their lives. And not long after they spent time with us, I received a text from the wife who shared that they are now being called to explore their faith, and that they wanted us to know that we were a huge part of that calling. And they are now starting to read the Bible and are asking more questions, and God has given us an opportunity to pour into them even more with some of my Safe and Sound program that I do, the nervous system retraining program. And God is just bearing fruit in those lives. And so if you will continue to join us in praying for them, and just seeing how God is showing himself strong, and when we step out in faith and don't even know what that looks like. We didn't set out to constantly, or even at all, tell them you're wrong or you're this or you're that. But when we first met them, they were straight up proclaimed atheists, and they're now really exploring this Jesus and who he is, and are still seeking to know, figure out all of this. So
and just some of our favorite people in general.
Yes,
we just love them.
We enjoy them. We enjoy hanging out with them. And then God has brought us another family while during this baseball season that one of Noah's teammates, he has a twin brother, so we already had a connection with them there, and met their mom, and found out that they have an interesting setup as a family, and they are not believers, and we feel very called to begin to also plant seeds in their lives. And for some reason, God has given us favor with them. We call that, when we have gone into different towns and cities, we ask God to show us a person of peace. And that person may or may not be a believer, but it's someone who shows themselves as a person of peace and welcomes you in. And whether that's to encourage you in your faith, or whether that's to welcome you in and you share your faith with them. We've seen that over and over in different instances. And before, either not long after I met this family or right before, I came across a YouTube video of a man by the name of Ross Johnston, and I'm gonna share a link with you guys in the email as well, so that you guys can see him. But I came across his video, his YouTube channel, and he started sharing this story of his life story, about how he was born via artificial insemination, and he was raised by 2 women and in a lesbian household. And when he was the age of 15, he didn't know anything different, but a friend of his invited him to church, and he didn't know anything about anything, but he thought, sure, I'll just go. And Jesus radically saved his life, and he immediately went home and wanted to tell his mom. And there was like this whole upheaval happening in his family already, and he now has become a missionary in the state of California, to see the state of California come to salvation, which is a huge endeavor, right? Only God could bring you to take on a mission like that. And he has an amazing ministry now throughout the state and on YouTube. And I just happened to hear of his story, and then I came to find out that we were planted right in the middle of a similar story. and of a similar family's life, and how God has been able to use Ross Johnston, even though we don't know him and he doesn't know us, but how he's been using him to be able to help encourage us, and as we are developing relationships with this family. And so just seeing fruit coming from that as well, if you would continue to pray alongside us with that family as well. We are just continuing to press in and build relationships with that family. It's also allowed us to have a new coffee shop hangout. And
okay.
Lots of really cool things as we are trying to press into this relationship and what God has placed before us. So
and just amazing people, just fantastic people that we really love being around, love hanging out with them, good kids, just really neat people. So it's a real blessing to be around them. In general. So
speaking of baseball, we got to have another baseball season.
Yes, another baseball season for all three boys. They all played, so Asher and Micah were on a team that I was fortunate to coach, and then Noah played on a team that I was fortunate to be able to help out with. And so kids had a great year. It's such cool stuff to watch how great they do. They just a duck to water, they just love it. They love it. And they're really good at it, which is really cool to see. All three of them made All-Stars this year. Got to coach Asher and Micah's All-Star team, and they won their tournament they played in, which is really cool. A walk-off in a 4.5-hour marathon of a game. Scored the winning run in the last inning, and then Noah's team played fantastic. Noah pitched really well. They came a little short in their All-Star game, but they just were. It was so fun to see, to be able to watch and be a part of that. And then I also had the blessing of hurting my knee during baseball, which was not as fun. Hurt it the first game of the year, and it continued to hurt me all the way through the end of the season. Turns out I had partially torn a meniscus, and so ended up going to a physical therapist, had me do some different workouts, that some exercises and stretches that have helped it tremendously. And so now I'm back in the mend again and able to run around and make a fool of myself without limping while I do it, which is really, really pretty cool.
Well, Jim makes it sound simple, but he got this knee injury, and then he continued to try to coach multiple practices each week, getting ready for All-Stars that he also was asked to coach. And meanwhile, his knee would start to get better, and then it would get worse, and then it would start to get better, and then it would get worse. And he was wearing a knee brace. He was doing all the oils, different supplements to help with bring down inflammation, red light therapy, all the things, chiropractic care, all the things that we knew to do, and it just was not getting better. And we finally went to the chiropractor and said, what else do we need to do, because this is not getting better, and he needs to be able to walk. We thought maybe he was going to have to go to crutches or something for a while to give it some rest, and they sent us to this physical therapist, and gosh, he was a huge answer to prayers, because within one visit of doing dry needling, if you've ever experienced that
was a doozy,
and physical therapy, and giving him some new exercises, it was like night and day difference. It was a huge blessing, and to know that it wasn't an injury that was going to need any kind of surgical intervention or anything has been a huge blessing. So
for sure.
Yes, lots of answers to prayers with that, for sure.
Yeah, big time.
And then during that time, between the end of baseball season and All-Stars, and during baseball season, we had 2 events that we were a part of. One was an Earth Day celebration in Houston. That was just a few hour event, but was so impactful. We not only got to spend it with some friends that we love dearly in Houston, but also we got to have some powerful prayer time over some people that we were so thankful for. Anytime we do events like that, whether we're partnering with doTERRA or we're partnering with Solex or whatever the event is, or whether we're doing something with homeschooling, we try to go into the event asking God for spiritual eyes and ears to be able to be open and alert to anything that He wants us to do during that time, whether it's a word that He wants to give us for encouragement, or somebody that He's wanting us to be a blessing in their lives, or if He's wanting us to speak a word of knowledge into someone else's life, or to plant seeds, or to share the gospel, whatever it is. And we had such great opportunities to do some of those things there. And then a few weeks later, we found ourselves in Bastrop, Texas, where this time we were at a 3-day event, and this was like all hands on deck, all the things, kind of like the event we did in February when we were at the Autism Health Summit. And this time our boys were serving and doing things as well, and we were going from daylight till dark at the Exit and Build Land Summit. So again, this is a gathering of freedom lovers who are looking to exit the city and get on land, whether we're building a community on land together or homesteading and stewarding land to give back to a community, exiting the healthcare system and building something new, exiting the education system and building something new. So it's really a neat group of people that we get to connect with, and that was a huge blessing as well. But it was exhausting.
It was exhausting.
And
but
so
it was really fun.
As we left there, we knew we had to come back to the same area we had just left because we had to prepare for All Stars, and Jim had been asked to coach a team, and they had kind of just fallen apart and then slowly put back together. And we thought we had a place to
stay. We thought we had a campground sorted out. On the way back, we realized that campground was not going to work out. But good news, we had 2 other options kind of in our back pocket. And so Amy had gone ahead with the boys, and I was coming behind.
That's a blessing
towing.
that we now have a second vehicle. That was a huge blessing that day. Yes.
Yeah, it was a huge blessing. And so Amy and the boys went by these 2 campgrounds that we had talked about potentially staying at. And Amy realized they were not going to work. That neither of those was a good choice. And so she calls me and is like, Jim, these are not okay. We got to find another place to stay. We got to figure something out. And I am literally towing into town. I am 15 minutes from where we're going to be staying, where we thought we were going to be staying. And so I said, listen, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pull over for a few minutes. You go find a place, and then I'll be looking online, and then we'll figure something out. And long story short, truck broke down. I had to change the fuel filter because I was behind in my work there. So I'm on the side of the road. I changed the fuel filter in the truck while Amy finds this amazing place for us to stay.
Well, I remember in the car just saying, Lord, you have to provide us a place to stay, a place to live. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where you're just driving around literally asking God, where can we live?
Yeah.
And Jim literally had a practice to run that evening, and it was getting like 4 o'clock trying to find a place to stay. Yeah. And literally out of nowhere, God provided a place because we thought we had looked at all the places, and we found a place. It was a little 10 minutes farther out than we were where we were looking. But we found a place that also had a pool so that we could be able to cool off because like I said, we've had a lot of challenges with being in the Texas heat in our fifth wheel. It's not like being in a house at all. And so we wanted to be able to have a place to be able to cool off at some point. And God provided. And we literally pulled into this place, put out our slides, set everything up, shoved food in our mouth at about 5:30 and headed over for a 7 o'clock practice to run. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a whirlwind, but that was a wild one. That was kind of just a glimpse back into our, typical travel day kind of craziness, chaos.
There's no such thing as a typical travel day. We found that
they always come with great adventures.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So let's
So as we wrap up, there's a few other things we want to share with you.
Just real quick. So
It's not quick.
So Noah, we have been working on a journey with his Airway, and if you've been following along, you've seen that. So we had braces put in, and then a thing called a Marpy that was a device that is screwed into the top of his mouth that gradually opens up to open up his palate on the top of his mouth, which then will open up his airway. And they measure the width of that in millimeters. And at the beginning, when they first installed that Marpy, it was 5 millimeters of width. And the last time that we went in for a measurement, it was measuring 23 millimeters of width. So he's gone nearly 5-fold the amount of air that he's able to get into his lungs as he's breathing in through his esophagus there. And so it's been a huge blessing. And we're at the point now just waiting to get that Marpy removed, which is hopefully happening pretty soon. And then next on the list is Asher. So Asher got his braces installed recently. So now he's a brace face. And so now we have another boy that is watching. We're kind of watching the progress of seeing his mouth and his airway opened up, which has been really really kind of excited to see.
And this has not been about, we probably wouldn't have done braces if this was about straightening teeth, because this is not something that we budget for.
No.
But this whole journey has been about the airway and how each of them, their airway is compromised. And there are many that have compromised airways now that we're discovering. But this is going to allow less of a likelihood for sleep apnea in the future, and for snoring, and for grinding of the teeth. Lots of issues that this is helping resolve ahead of time to lessen the factors that are happening later on as well. So, and for Noah, helping reduce the grinding that was happening and open up the airway to get him better oxygen to the brain. So this has been a huge blessing. And Micah eventually will be next, but we're trying to stagger everybody. And so, but after being in our RV now for 6 years, I just want to take us back to the start of our journey, you know, because when we first set out to do this, when we were living in Houston, and God's, you know, started slowly shifting our heads and our hearts towards being on the road, which was a very strange shift and transition to be in, because it's not something we ever really thought of before. We knew, like Jim said, that there was more. And we knew that we were supposed to go on the road, and we knew we were supposed to sell everything, but we didn't really know exactly what that looked like at all. And it's like, if you've ever been on any adventure with God, he doesn't show you everything that's going to happen at once. It's like he's revealed pieces of what he wants us to do in phases. And so, you know, that first phase, we felt like we were trading in a lot of material things for experiences. And then as God placed different people in our path, we began to see that we were to be moving into discipleship and evangelism on the road, and how God provided those experiences, even a little bit in 2019, but then even more so in 2020. You know, he discipled us in 2018 and 19, so much of that in Laramie, Wyoming. And then and then when we began to see glimpses of more of what God was doing in 2019 in Virginia. And then when we moved into 2020 and 2019, and when my mom passed away, we were back in Texas for a few months, then God began to reveal more to us as we were to begin to get back on the road and do discipleship in a new way in 2020 in Flagstaff, Arizona, and so many other places on the road in South Padre Island, Texas, and so many other places in between all those places. And so now God has shifted us again, and he's planted this stirring in our hearts to steward land, to be a blessing in a community, to allow our boys to be able to play baseball and minister in that realm of people, and maybe even do discipleship through a baseball team. And so we don't know exactly where we're going next or what this looks like. It feels very much like another transition time. And in some ways it's unsettling because, you know, I like a plan. I like to know the plan. And we've had to focus as a family on contentment in our fifth wheel that feels like it's shrinking. And, you know, when we try to sit on the couch together as a family. And so we've had to learn contentment. We had to learn patience, you know, as we can't get through the hallway together at the same time. You know, we can't be in the kitchen at the same time. You have to wait and be patient for the person who's in there to finish what they're doing, or whatever the case may be. And so we invite you to pray alongside us about what is next, because we find ourselves occasionally getting antsy and really having this longing to steward land. And we know that God will give an abundance from that land. We want to be able to host weary travelers. We want to be able to give from the abundance of what we can create food-wise on land. But we can't do that in the situation we're in. You know, we don't own anything that we're on. We don't have that space to do it. And we have dreams of vermicomposting and honey and kombucha and farm stores and things like that. And so in many ways we're just waiting to know what the next step is. Wouldn't you say?
For sure. And I think it's one of those that we spent 6 years listening and maybe not knowing where the next 2 steps were, and very often not knowing where the next step is until we started to move, and then we started to see it. And so just praying for God to reveal himself to us and to show us where that next step is so that we can take it in faith, and that God would then bless the work that we do.
So there's 2 things we want to invite you to do. The first one is we want to hear from you. We want to hear what your prayer needs are so that we can pray for those and partner with you in prayer. And we just want to hear from you. And second of all, we want to invite you to, if God has given you a specific word for us in this season of where we're supposed to go next, we want to hear that from you. We want to hear what God is showing you about this part of our journey. And so, we want to hear from you.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.
Yes.
We appreciate you guys. I don't know why I want to say this, but Baruch atah Adonai Elohim Melech Ha'olam, which is blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe. And so we bless you guys, and we pray God's richest blessing over you, and we look forward to hearing from you. Bye.
Bye, guys.